Amy Schwartz, who is the president of the Jewish Studies Center, will be giving the introduction to the actual event, as she always does. Okay, Amy, take it over.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. An early Hag Sameach, and welcome to the Jewish Studies Center's first, and if I may say so, we hope last, all virtual Rabbi Max Ticktin Memorial Latke-Hamentashen debate. So we are very, very happy to have all of you with us in cyberspace. I am as Jerry said, I'm the president of the Jewish Center, and in spite of everything, this is still our favorite night of the year. We love this program, and we're thrilled to have you all with us, and we know real fans when we see them, because obviously you are not just here for the food. So let me just thank the Jewish Studies Center board and the members who did so much work to put this together, as they always do. It's always a lot of work, but particularly in this unfamiliar form. Our mastermind, as always, is Sheldon Kimmel, longtime impresario of the Latke-Hamentashen debate, or as he likes to call said, our treasurer, Jerry Garfinkel, who's also our tech director, our vice president, Mindy Reiser, who has been doing fabulous work both on this program and on all the other programs this year. And do not forget to look at our website, because there's some fabulous stuff coming up that both Jerry and Mindy have been working on. Also, our tech showmares, something we haven't had before, a couple of tech showmerim, Roz, Timberg, and Victoria Khan, who are in charge of keeping this running if we can't do it ourselves. Now, so the Latke-Hamentashen debate is self-explanatory. You'll soon see how it goes if you haven't been at these for years. Let's turn to our panel of experts and our celebrity moderator, Howard Mortman, with the wonderful side backdrop, or maybe I should say side drop, with the latkes and the Hamentashen on two pillars. Howard is back for his third tour with us, and also fresh off a triumphant tour with his own book, When Rabbis Bless Congress, which also has one of its many previous existences was as a Jewish Studies Center program. So we're very proud of Howard. Howard is, as many of you already know, the C-SPAN's director of communications, do I have that right? And a master of this form, both online and off. A distinguished panel whom Howard will talk more about, Carol Zawadzki, Maharat Ruth Friedman, Bob Peck, and Ezekiel Emanuel. I am sure that with such a distinguished panel this year, this will be the year we finally get this question answered for good. So take it away, Howard. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Amy. I am furiously rewriting my jokes here, because you actually told the best one, that you didn't come here just for the food. I actually jealous of you for that joke. So anyways, well, it's that time of year. Again, the annual Jewish Studies Center Max Ticktin Memorial Latke-Hamentashen debate. What a festive mood. We could just feel the energy everywhere. The Hamentashen lights are all up in the shopping centers. The oversized latke scenes are big in the front yards. The bars are promoting happy hour specials. You pour them, we'll drink them. And the new administration has already picked the director of the Office of Hamentashen Affairs. Great timing. You might remember when we held last year's debate. It was also shortly after a presidential impeachment trial. So we've settled into a nice little routine here. What's different about this year, of course, is this year is the best parking we've ever had. For those of you who are attending this debate for the first time, yes, we typically hold it in person. This year, like everything else since the world ended, it's virtual. By now, we're all familiar with platforms like Zoom and platforms like Google Meets. By the way, if you're kosher, you don't want to mix your Google Meets with your Google Milks. And we don't use filters, no cat filters and no taco filters. Well, we do use one filter, a fish filter, like a filter fish. Okay. Thank you. Someone's not muted, which goes well with the anchovies, by the way, and the oncologist. Notes and get started. For the next hour, you're welcome to do other distracting things like check Instagram and no one will notice. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the Yom Kippur announcement. Oh, another administrative note. if you're looking for the Gleekfelder bar mitzvah, that's the next Zoom over. And if you smell something weird, that's because we are arguing over applesauce versus sour cream. Now, as you know, this is for charity, so I want to assure you all that every single penny we raise tonight goes for unnecessary administrative overhead. Hopefully tonight you'll be intellectually challenged and entertained, both funny and curious, which is why after this show you might think you attended Temple Bette Midler. All right, yes, what typically is a synagogue setting tonight might seem more like a comedy club. So it's okay to laugh, lots of laughter. For instance, if this were, say, Temple Har Sinai, we could call it Temple Har Sinai. But tonight it's really about you, the audience. Some of you attending might identify with the pronoun Latke, others might identify with the pronoun Hamentashen. Either way is fine. We welcome all. After all, strong opinions on food. Some look at pastrami and ask, rye. Others look at a stack of pastrami and ask, rye. Actually, since Mars is in the news, if you know all about the stars, but work at a deli, it means in school you studied pastronomy. Disease. For latkes, a ruthless leader of potatoes, dictator taught. Every autumn, Jewish lovers of French cuisine sauce go to synagogue to celebrate the high holidays. And funny hot dogs tell knock-knock worse jokes. And when the debate is over, we hope with all this food talk, you don't end up with an upset stomach. The winner would be like a boxer who wins by a knockout. Call that person K. And now you know why Congress passes non-binding resolutions. All right, let's get started. Stars of tonight's annual Jewish Study Memorial Latke-Hamentashen debate. Of course, tonight's question, which are better? We go first, and we are thrilled to have joining us tonight. Zeke Emanuel is an oncologist and widely cited bioethicist. Zeke is vice provost for global initiatives and chair of the Department of Medical Ethics and Health Policy at the University of Pennsylvania. He's a member of President Biden's COVID-19 advisory board and was a healthcare advisor in the Clinton and Obama administrations. Zeke's latest book is Which Country Has the Best World Healthcare? It's a thrill to welcome Dr. Zeke Emanuel. Take it away, Zeke.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here. I guess here being a relative term, maybe I'm just in the cloud. When I was first asked to do this, I certainly had no idea that we would have over 200 people listening to this. So it's an amazing, shockingly amazing turnout, pleasantly amazing turnout. As was said, first, I am the least Jewishly qualified person to address you tonight. That should stand in. Everyone else has some official Jewishy relationship or official position. I have none, and not that I don't like organized things. Second of all, I don't know. I have a big investment in food, and I love cooking. So I'm speaking about this from the culinary, but more importantly, I think was said that I am a physician. So I'm going to be discussing the health aspects and from my particular vantage point on health. I lecture and therefore I have to use slides. There's no alternative. And I just hope that everyone settles in, because as you know, most professors were geared to speak for 50 minutes or 75 minutes, but no less. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen if I can even figure out where Latke-Hamentashen slide is. We're canceling that. We're trying to do this. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes, we can see
Someone
it.
just gesture yes or say.
Yes, yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So, both are appealing. This is a serious consideration if you're like more. But as mentioned, I'm not here talking to you mainly as a foodie. I'm here talking to you mainly as a physician. So the real question when you look at these two items is pick your poison, right? This is just about which one is going to kill you first. Is this a choice of dying from diabetes or heart disease? In other words, fat versus sugar. It's a long time to the fat. Which do you prefer? Which satisfies you more? Because I'm a doctor, I thought we ought to spend a little time thinking about which one is better for you and which one is worse for you, and make a decision purely on the doctor side. Now, I want you, I'm Dr. Death. Thanks to Sarah Palin, their friends, about a decade ago, almost exactly. Well, actually, about 12 years ago. I've had this moniker for a long time. They crowned me Dr. Death. And I am going to speak to you from that vantage point, just so you know. So the case against sugar, it's pretty simple. We all know that eating a lot of sugar isn't good for your diabetes. Eating high amounts of sugar has shown to double your chance of heart disease, not just diabetes. And there's also a deep connection, between sugar and cancer, which I know well, Alzheimer's and memory loss, which I can't remember, and aging. You eat more sugar and it's really multiple problems for you. Among participants without diabetes, so these are, people like me and you, higher average glucose levels, I would say, from eating Hamentashen within the preceding 5 years were related to an increased risk of sugar. Is simple acts of covalently cross-linking collagen. Now, collagen is that stuff underneath your skin that provides the fiber that keeps you up and the toughness to your skin so things don't go through it. So sugar is, the wrinkles, the glucose with heart disease, with Alzheimer's. It's not a good thing, this high sugar, just not a good thing. But there is also a case against fat. Numerous studies. Low fat. Right? You go out, you get milk. It's got to be low fat. Otherwise, all that fat is not good for you. But it is true that if you have fat that doesn't have a lot of bonds in it, it can be bad. But also, recent studies have suggested that this sort of jihad against fat that we've had for the last 50 years is misplaced. No correlation between fat intake and heart disease. The British medical journal BMJ saturated fat DVD that is cerebral vascular disease, stroke, heart disease, ischemic stroke, or type 2 diabetes. The Journal of Clinical Nutrition, no significant evidence for concluding that dietary saturated fats are associated with an increased risk of coronary heart disease or cerebral vascular disease. And the Annals of Internal Medicine did a full analysis showing not clearly support cardiovascular guidelines that encourage high consumption of polyunsaturated fats and low consumption of total saturated fats. So maybe we shouldn't be worried so much about fats. And being someone in the who's worked on nutrition, actually worked on fixing these nutrition labels when I was in the Obama administration, I thought it was important to compare the nutrition facts as we have them. I've always been a little worried about these. We're able to fix is that we look at it, calories per serving on the latkes, 99. Calories from fat, 49. You can see not a whole lot of nutrition there, right? Protein, 2 grams. Potassium, 7%. Saturated fat, 5%. So not exactly what you would call the most nutritious elements there is. But notice it's only 1 latke. Minuscule, tiny little latke. Who eats 1 latke? Right? This is completely done pastry. Who eats 1 Hamentashen? But unlike the latke, you come in at 268 calories, right? Lots more saturated fat, lots more cholesterol, and maybe a little more protein, but not great. Well, that's what the nutrition facts say. But I will tell you, my favorite dietary study, published about a decade ago in the New England Journal, it's about 8 years ago, in the New England Journal, looked at nurses in the Nurses' Health Study, tens of thousands of nurses, and healthcare professionals study, tens of thousands of male physicians, healthcare professionals, asked them the food they ate, and then followed them up. And what you see is very common in medical professions. Things are associated. Now, just to look at the top part of it. Look at the top part. When you go to the right, you increase the risk of mortality. And if you go to the left, you decrease the risk of mortality. So in their analysis, the absolute worst foods for you were any kind of potatoes. Potato chips. I don't know that they had a particular sign-off for latkes, but I can assure you French fries and latkes kind of similar. The worst nutrition food for you, and some of you may know that once I actually was a chef. I had a pop-up breakfast joint in Washington, D.C. at Union Market, in what now is the Masseria restaurant, and I forbade us from having any potato on the menu precisely because of this graphic.
Wow.
But if you go down, you can see better for you, even better than potatoes, are sweets and desserts. So the question is, latke or Hamentashen? Sugar or fats? Well, if you go by this graphic and all the studies, this says potatoes, not good. Sweets and desserts, well, they may not be good for you, but they're less not good, especially, I want to show you, if you stuff them with nuts, here, the nuts, or the fruits. So maybe you have a sweetened dessert that's got nuts and fruits, you're on the better side. Well, I've been told that I have to actually make a decision here. I have to vote one way or another. It's hard, very hard. So my solution to this problem is go with the latkes, bad, and don't use yogurt. And you can see yogurt is the #1 most healthy promoting food. So I would say latkes, not with applesauce, not with sour cream, latkes with plain yogurt. And that's my vote in the Hamentashen versus Latke debate after much consideration of the health aspects. So Dr. Death recommends latkes for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Emanuel, thank you so much for that. That was wonderful. That was, let me see, I will tell you, not only was that wonderful remarks, but the chat room was going furious as he spoke, and that was like a stock market ticker over there. So that was great comments. Now, of course, for the other side, for the pro-Hamentashen side, next participant is the great, and Carol, thank you for joining, Carol Zawadzki, the former CEO of the Edlovich DC Jewish Community Center. Carol has extensive experience in the arts, culture, and management. DC career has been the Jewish Museum in New York, the Museum of Jewish Heritage in Cleveland, and the Jewish Community Center of San Francisco. Carol Zawadzki, and this is all yours. Take it away.
Thank you. So, first of all, I do have a Emanuel. I wonder what kind of that.
Say, if you're going to use yogurt, so if you were to ask he says it ought to be lamb fat. Like, well, I told him it doesn't work if you're going to mix it with yogurt. So you could use sunflower seed oil, low in unsaturated fats, excellent. That's you can use olive oil, gives a little ting. So those are the two oils that we cook with.
Some of you may know that this great tradition actually began in the winter of 1946 at the University of Chicago. The debate on the relative merits of the Latke-Hamentashen. In fact, you had to hold a PhD to be part of the debate. It's been argued by some of the most significant minds in our collective Jewish communities. So I'm not exactly sure how I got chosen, though I can imagine the conversation. We need one more woman. Can't have a mantle. We need someone over 55. Someone who loves Hamentashen and latkes. We need someone non-Ashkenazi normative. We need someone differently abled. Well, they scrolled through their contact lists and came up with me. I ticked off enough of the boxes, and as a woman under 5 foot, might have counted as someone differently abled, given that I cannot reach my yogurt flavor at Whole Foods without help. And here we are. I am truly honored that the Jewish Studies chose to invite me. Thank you. I do understand this is a debate. However, when you see the argument that I set forth, it will be abundantly clear that there is no room for debate. My argument is one based on pure facts and logic. There's no way to punch holes in the case that I am putting forward. Let's just look at the symbolism. One symbolized not much. Oil that lasted, some say, an extra long time. The symbol there, no big deal. Oily potatoes, and in more recent times, oily sweet potatoes. oily zucchini. There's just not a lot to go on there. When you eat a latke, you're basically a symbol of God's intervention. We as human beings are barely bit players in this one. Oh, look, the oil's still burning. It's a pretty passive role. The symbolism of the latke is based on a bystander act with God as the central player. It's just not a particularly empowering or compelling story or symbol. Now, when you examine the symbolism of the Hamentashen, there's still some real depth to explore. You're looking at the symbol quite literally destroying the oppressor with this simple act of biting this food. This is true whether you interpret the form as the ear of Haman or his hat, or a pocket in the shape of Haman's hat. When you eat delicious Hamentashen, you are eating the symbol of good triumphing over evil through the acts of human intervention. We see what a great model of moral courage and the leadership of a woman, Esther, really looks like. The symbol of the Hamentashen, as with so much of the tradition Purim, is layered and surrounded by intrigue. The inside of the Hamentashen is hidden and not fully revealed without our participation of breaking open the delectable pastry delight, uncovering the sweetness that is the filling. Need I remind you that the latke leaves no mystery, no human intervention in the discovery of the story or the symbol. It just sits there on your plate, albeit a delicious crispy seconds. And we all know that the lowly latke without its topping is nothing to behold. We could stop there. However, the stately Hamentashen with its beautiful shape has so many more genuine merits. Let's look at universalism and cultural inclusion. The story is focused in Persia to begin with. The Hamentashen fillings reflect the multiplicity of places Jews in each place around the globe where Jews have lived. We have poppy seeds, prune, apricot, persimmon, honey and nuts, and now chocolate chips and sprinkles, just to name a few. The latke, on the other hand, is inarguably Ashkenazi-centric, Eastern European, and excludes the vast communities of Jews from Sephardic and Mizrahi traditions. Right there, I'm sure you would agree, there's just no contest, no need to continue. However, there is even more. The triangular shape of the Hamentashen is the sturdiest shape, not the misshapen blob of the latke. The Hamentashen stands in the tradition of some of our greatest buildings, paintings, and even the human form. How can we possibly compare this to a flat, crispy brown latke? We simply cannot. If none of this has been compelling enough to prove that the Hamentashen is the superior holiday delight, I ask you to consider the Queen Esther contest in our own city of Washington, D.C., which began in 1940. Some of the lovely Queen Esthers are part of my backdrop. Was there ever a latke queen contest? I think not. So there's no debate. We can end now. Thank you.
Yeah, good case. Good case.
Very good. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, our third panelist coming up next is the great, and thank you for joining us, is the great Robert Bob, it says in the notes here, Bob Peck. Bob Peck is a distinguished land use attorney who is a former commissioner of the U.S. Federal Services Administration, president of the Greater Washington Board of Trade, vice president of the American Institute of Architects, and president of Addis Israel Congregation in Washington, D.C., one of our favorites. And for those who, by the way, those who are here for the first time in Latke-Hamentashen debate and have done it in person, Addis Israel is where we go. So it is wonderful to have Bob with us. He is currently a principal at the Gensler Architectural and Consulting Firm. Bob Peck, please present us a pro-Latke point of view.
First of all, hi. And I should say I have the best title at Addis Israel, former president of the congregation. I'm going right at you, Carol. It would go negative, at least right off the bat. So I'm only going to pray that pocket of mine, that name we dare not speak. Let's not talk of the perfection and profundity of the latke circular shape, the cycle of life, the merry-go-round, the pizza pie, versus the perfidy and prurience of the triangle, the nuclear radiation warning sign, the cheesehead, and Vayazmir, the love triangle. Hamentashen might make some sense in our tradition if we were told that at that feast that Esther threw, she served the king and Haman Hamentashen. It would even have played into her deception of that bad guy. She could have announced she had come up with a new pastry in his honor. I'd like the story better, frankly, if she, like Yael, hammering the stake into General Sisera, and been done with Haman right then and there. Let's make sure Vladimir Putin doesn't climb onto that idea. So, no arsenic, but I've had many Hamentashen that taste like they have it. And then why prunes and poppy seeds? Midrash tells us that Esther had been surreptitiously keeping kosher in the harem by eating only fruits and vegetables. Where did she get her protein? If only she had not gone vegan, she could have wrapped some good Persian lamb into that tri-cornered dough, and we could be eating, pardon the expression, pigs in Hamentashen as our Purim food. Now we'd be talking. Anyway, I want to know, how is it that Hamentashen, along with God, don't make it into the Megillah story at all? Now, I know you're thinking that the Hanukkah story doesn't say anything about latkes either. This is not true. You've fallen for the fake news right out of Rupert Mordechai's Pox on You news service. Rabbi Mendel of Schmaltz teaches that Judah Maccabee and his band of men in tights fired latkes from their slingshots and backs. Although Rabbi Malachim Mavis of Putznik says it was matzah balls in the slingshots, since they are weightier and more lethal. But the weight of tradition is with the Schmaltzedika Rebbe. Once they retook the temple, why did the Maccabees need to kindle those candles? Just to say brachot and exchange gifts? No, they were working around the sundial to rebuild the temple. They needed to see in the dark. Once they raised everyone's building fund assessment, they had a lot of repair work to do. And as the saying goes, Schwitz, blood, sweat, and latkes rededicated they the building. It's just a western wall, right on the western wall, which was actually the temple's donor wall. Every temple has one, no? Little known too is that the wall's ancient name was misinterpreted. It was not the Wailing Wall. It was the Scaling Wall, one of the most popular features of its time at the City of David JCC. Anyway, latke batter, allowed to set just right, is one of the strongest building materials in Rome, the one that features a menorah, the one we don't walk through because we think it celebrates the capture of Judea. No, actually it was celebrating the importation of Judean latke batter so that Rome could be built in a day. Let's turn to the explanations of the shape of the Hamentashen. Some say it's a tri-cornered hat, presumably because Mordechai Haman and all the fashionable Shushanites were wearing them at the time. I guess with the slogan on the sign, "Make Shushan great again." Meshuggah for sure. But I don't 200 years later, in time to be tossed onto beds by the father of this country. Many, as we know from our elementary school history, embroidered with the slogan, "George Washington slept here." Out of reverence for the foresires, We won't talk about on what beds Thomas Jefferson tossed his hat or Ben Franklin tossed his chapeau in France. Then there were rabbis who said that the corners represent the three patriarchs who watched over Esther, who in return for her favors had to risk her life to get an audience with the king. So wait, Vashti gets done in because she won't come when His Highness beckons, but Esther's in peril for showing up? And this isn't a story that doesn't mention God, mind you, but we're supposed to think that the patriarchs hover in the background. This is far-fetched, even considering that our tradition has developed biblical exegesis, not to mention pulpul, into an art. Just a week and a half ago, one of our beloved rabbis at Addis, no kidding about beloved, opened her Devar on Parsha Mishpatim by quoting one of her favorite teachers saying that the most important letter in the Parsha is the Vav at the beginning, because the Vav means and. A people wearing blue lasers from space to incinerate the forest. Those trees, by the way, were set afire by us Jews, by the way, is this. The fires did not touch Cedars Sinai in Los Angeles. No? Hospital in Los Angeles, named for Cedars of Lebanon, founded by Jews? Never mind. Okay, never mind. The latke, on the other hand, has such a perfectly rational and direct connection to its holidays narrative. Oil, burning oil, frying pan, potatoes, latkes. Pretty straightforward and singular, eh? Or it was straightforward until sufganiyot came along. I am not going to defend jelly donuts. Glazed donuts, yes. Jelly, no. Too sweet, too messy. Even so, they're not prunes. Prunes, really? We want the Goyim to think we weren't bound up in oppression in Egypt? Bound up? So how many people at this debate make their own Hamentashen? Anyone? Okay. And if you do, every year, does making Hamentashen suffuse your entire home for the smell that reminds you of what you did? No, it does not. Do the Hamentashen give you stigmata on your hand from second-degree burning oil? No, I don't think so. Clearly inferior. I say, if you want a scrumptious piece of dough with poppy seeds, have a bagel. For Hanukkah, everyone knows to gather around the table will give you a treat, vivanim to play with, luscious levivo to eat. Even though there are not that many Purim songs, and certainly no Purim songs to rival Hanukkah songs. I mean, Adam Sandler didn't bother with Purim, that's for sure. Maybe a Purim song that even mentions Hamentashen. And that's not even considering most lost to history. A scholar at the Jewish Kitchenological Seminary recently found the first draft of that famous nigun of Debbie Friedman of blessed memory and discovered it was not originally intended for Havdalah at all. Here's how it was supposed to go. La 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 latkes, la 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 latkes, la 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 latkes, Judah Maccabeus, la 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 latkes, la 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 latkes, la 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 latkes. They smell up the house and grind and drop in a measure of blood and add in the eggs, flour, and other ingredients until it's a consistency of latkes are burnt. Chag Purim Sameach, everybody.
Mazel tov.
That's solid entertainment. Thank you for that. You actually earned the Jerry Garfield. Very well done. Thank you. Very well prepared. And now our final panelist, hardly least but last for the presentation, Maharat Ruth Friedman for the pro-Hamentashen side. Maharat Friedman is a member of the inaugural class of Yeshivat Maharat, the first institution of women as spiritual leaders and halakhic religious law authorities. She serves as Maharat at Ohev Sholom, National Synagogue in Washington, D.C. Responsibilities include overseeing conversion, supervising the mikveh, directing adult education, providing pastoral counseling, teaching in the community, and more. Please welcome to the great Latke-Hamentashen debate from the Hamentashen side, Maharat Friedman.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to be here. And I don't know if I should admit it, but I will. This is the first time I have ever participated in a Latke-Hamentashen debate, but not only that, ever attended a Latke-Hamentashen. I consider myself to be a fairly funny person. I'm not good at corny puns. And so I wanted to thank Howard and Bob I'm grateful to you. Don't shirk. This is a good thing. So thank you for covering that territory for me. And so I thought I would open with a joke, but not a corny joke. It's more of a dry sense of humor joke. And I'm going to talk about being pro-Hamentashen through the lens of my own experience. And so my joke is, how many Orthodox Jews does it take to change a light bulb? Anyone know the answer?
None on Shabbat.
Is it Shabbat?
10. Not on Shabbat. No, okay, good. Not on Shabbat. 10. Okay, excellent. So good guesses, but the answer is change. Because, of course, the joke being that Orthodox Jews, in theory, don't believe, even though, as Howard introduced me, and I know some of you, and it's delightful to see you here. But for those of you I don't know, so I was in the first graduating class of a program training Orthodox women to serve as what we said spiritual leaders, but that was code for not saying the word rabbi in the Orthodox community. Now, we faced a lot of backlash for that, as you can probably imagine, because change, men are the rabbis, not women. And so one of my rabbis once brilliantly said, the way that you create change in the Orthodox community is by pretending or framing that whatever you are doing that is in theory new is actually the way that it's always been. And so how did we advocate for Maharat, this program in the Orthodox community? We said, look, 400 years ago, there was this woman who served as the rabbi of her community. There have been plenty of examples over time. We're just part of tradition. It's no big deal. Now, maybe that's partially true, but the reality is that we were lying to ourselves. Now, I have to say that I actually this debate through the lens of this exact political dance, and really a dance about what it means to have a Jewish identity, and not specifically Orthodox, but Jewish identity, at least in America, certainly in the 21st century. Yes, thank you for someone who pointed out as well. Part of the beauty of Zoom is that I'm calling in Chicago. By the way, I think we should do a follow-up debate with myself and Dr. Emanuel and whomever else about the proper pronunciation of the word latke. Because I wonder, I know there are people who disagree and say it should be latke. But anyway, so there was, so we had to say, okay, what we're doing, actually, this is kind of the way it's always been, but really, that wasn't. So how does this connect to the Latke-Hamentashen debate? Now, a latke is a delicious thing. I happen to not like potatoes very much, but my husband makes fabulous latkes. Now, the great thing about latkes is that they don't really change that much. You can vary how much you grate the potatoes. Do you leave coarse grating, or do you more finely puree them, and that affects the gumminess and the oil absorption? I suppose you could factor in, do you use eggs or do you just use potatoes? How much salt do you like to use? But at the end of the day, a latke is oil, onion, and potato. I once had someone make beet latkes. Now, I happen to love beets, but if you're actually going to convince me, I would say you can't convince me. Once you're in the territory of using other root vegetables to make your latke, let alone zucchini, in my humble opinion, you've left the realm of latke and now you're just in the realm of fritters. So the amazing thing, what I should say is, as this change question, latkes are better, they're consistent, you know what you're going to get when you get a latke. But actually, I'm going to go with the Hamentashen. Now, Hamentashen, I think they're a much more interesting place in Jewish community right now. I actually would love if folks want to type into the chat the most interesting Hamentashen flavor that you have ever. Someone, it may have been Chef Rachel Bitone in Kent Mill, was making a dulce de leche and goat cheese Hamantashen, which to me, I thought sounded like the most incredible Hamantashen and most yummy thing really ever that I would ever want to eat. I didn't get one, but I think it sounds incredible. Now, my husband, despite having found the very fact that I was a student in Maharat, and therefore breaking paradigms within Orthodoxy interesting, is actually an avowed traditionalist. And though he is 34 years old, he believes that prune Hamantashen are the only acceptable flavor, and that is all that he eats. And so this year we had to make him prune Hamantashen, but we only made a few because, of course, everyone else in my family refused to eat them. Now, in his mind, he is preserving tradition. But the funny thing about that is, okay, but that's just his perspective. Eat poppy seed Hamantashen because to her, that is the most traditional flavor. And so in my opinion, a Hamantashen points out the opportunity for newness and invention within a Jewish framework and the opportunity for adventure. There's a great article, it's already going back 10 years in the New York Times about the explosion of exciting Hamantashen flavors in Israel, like marshmallow, meringue, all of these things that personally I think sound delicious. Now, people like my husband and my mother-in-law would be horrified. And yet I love them both very, very much. But here, I think that they are creating a false paradigm for themselves in which tradition here is not something that is holy and sacred and that we must honor, but yet it's actually just tradition for the sake of being tradition, which is not something to discount entirely, but I think we need to make sure that that is not the only attitude that we bring with us into our Jewish identities, because when we do, we block out newness. We block out the opportunity for blending with other cultures at times, for taking ourselves and our triangle-shaped dough into new decades and new centuries. And so I fully embrace the idea of a dulce de leche and goat cheese Hamantashen and think it sounds amazing, not because it flies in the face of tradition or offends our traditional sensibilities, but because it says we want to engage with our Jewish identity and we also want to be part of the world around us. And I think it's that very attitude that is actually representative of how we maintain a strong and vibrant Jewish community in the 21st century. So thank you.
Thank you, Maharat Friedman. One more time for Maharat Friedman, everybody. Give a great applause. It worked. Thank you all. So this is the part of the evening when we normally would adjourn and enjoy some of these treats we've been talking about. Since it's over Zoom this time, Amy Schwartz, can I bring you in? And maybe since we still have 191 people here, while we bring you in, I just want to mention one thing. The Jewish Study Center is phenomenal, and they do amazing work. These are all volunteers. People just love education, love learning. Tonight's a fun night. Tonight's an entertaining night. We do this every year. But throughout the year, they put on wonderful academic and really great programs. So since we have 191 people here, participate and give generously. As the great Garfinkel said at the beginning of this, it's a wonderful cause, and I love it. Love these people. Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to pick and choose through the before our numbers diminish. If you want to pick and choose through the chat room here and bring in some comments from the audience.
Thank you, Howard, so much. You've turned in another fabulous evening for us. I think the main thing that I heard in the chat that resonates is people saying, "Gosh, I'm starting to feel kind of hungry." That's definitely that's true over here too. This is my husband, by the way, Eric Koenig, another mainstay of the study center. I did not see actually any questions in the chat. I gotta hand it to Maharat Ruth for a speaker who really knows how to manage a chat in a Zoom session, because she was in you were in actual. As opposed to the first session where the chat kind of went wild all by itself and provided a backdrop, and you were actually in dialogue with the chat, and some of those Hamantashen in the chat. Someone mentioned rose pistachio Hamantashen. Somebody mentioned Nutella Hamantashen. Jerry has his Bialy Hamantashen. I'm just looking to see if there are any more of these. We have some discussion of we had some discussion of the latke versus latke, which is the chat very in a scholarly way concludes it's a Litvak Galicianer thing. We had people who say chali for challah. We had one mixed marriage. I wonder if we wanted to have oh, here's another one. We had a fortune cookie Hamentashen attested to, and one vote. And I wonder if we want to get a show of hands on this. One person said, "I am against the muffinization of both latkes and Hamentashen." So I don't know if there are any questions, if we want to have a vote on the chat. Let's see. Rabbi Jan Kaufman actually has a good, I think directly at the mention of the rosewater and pistachio hamantash. She asked the obvious question, but is it halakhic? So perhaps I'll toss that back to the rabbinic panel. Does anyone want to comment on the halacha of the Hamantashen? Or here's Maya. Maya Bernstein says, did anyone address the propriety of sweet potato, zucchini, or rutabaga latkes? So do we have any volunteers on the appropriateness, either halachic or otherwise, of these radical recipes? And here's another, and then I have one more question, which we could. Does anyone know how to do? Does anyone want to do a poll on the halakhic? I guess, Maharat, Ruth, I'm sure it's not appropriate for us to vote on whether something is halakhic. You're welcome to that.
Yeah, as long as it's kosher, I see absolutely no issues whatsoever. I think we're good. And I can also, I know I was vegetables besides potatoes for their latkes, but I maintain that once you do that, you venture out of latke territory and in fritter territory.
So Rabbi Chuck, I have a question, perhaps best for Dr. Zeke. Which food prevents COVID-19? Latke or the Hamantash?
I think
No food.
You need 2 doses
No,
of
no
latke.
food.
Two
doses of latke, but only 1 of Hamantashen to get to the herd immunity, I think.
We have of the and jelly Hamantash from Rob Harleston. Anybody? Peanut butter and jelly? Manny Schiffer's like to see a halva Hamantash, and someone was just telling me that they had halva Hamantash in Israel. I bet that person's on this call. So
Jerry's still has his hand up.
Yes. This is a lesson in Yiddish. Latke is the pronunciation. I think people don't understand. Latke is simply the plural of latke.
Is that right? That
Who, me?
hard to tell on the Zoom. So I am just looking through the chat, and we have many kudos for the participants. Much appreciation for the cat skills, level skills of certainly of Howard. I didn't, Bob. I knew you could sing, but I didn't know you could sing that particular kind of song. And that'll allow our next session coming up is a program dear to Jerry Garfinkel's heart, which is a program on Jews and the Catskills. And so that's another thing to tune in for if we didn't leave you laughing tonight. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Howard, I think.
Gary, can we, Jerry, can we take a poll at this point if we haven't plugged it in yet?
One more question for Ernestine. The debate in her family is pureed versus shredded.
No, the problem is I hadn't set it up before and I forgot to set it up. So it's my fault. We can't do the poll. I've been trying to set it up now, but it doesn't seem to work.
Yeah.
I think there's really no contest. The Hamentashen one.
It's been some years since the Hamentashen had a really
Some
flashing.
of us come from Chicago. There is no way the Hamentashen will win.
Somebody actually asked, are we putting our thumb on the scale having this right before Purim? And I will bring this full circle by noting that the University of Chicago version of this, if I'm not mistaken, takes place at Hanukkah. They do it there at Hanukkah, and then we do it at Purim. That's how. He left them Hanukkah, and we took.
They do deep dish latkes in Chicago. That's what.
Well, the pizza Hamentashen, is that what you're suggesting? Potatoes, onions, the savory Hamantash.
We're in the Eastern Standard Time, so Chicago doesn't count.
Ruth says she made her husband Hamantashen, pizza Hamentashen once. I'd like to hear that.
Ooh. I took it was before we had children. And big circle, and put sauce and cheese in the middle, and then folded up the sides and baked it. I have to say it was a good idea in theory, but in execution, it's better to have your pizza spread out. You don't want the dough folded over. It wasn't the best. Also, Dr. Emanuel, you're not the only person here from Chicago.
Was it pizza dough or Hamentashen?
My family is political, though, and we know how to stuff ballot boxes.
With Hamentashen or latkes?
Miguel says, does a samosa count as a Hamantash? For sure, a nice worldly question. Is Moss still on? Which we could certainly do. By the way, do people know if they want to keep the chat, they can save the chat. I mean, somebody asked if they could see the recording of this again in the cold, dark days, and it is being recorded, and it'll be available on our website, I'm sure. But also, I think who says? Andrea says
we could also edit the chat and send people the best bits of the chat, highlights of the chat.
Best of. That's a thought. Well, the chat is uniformly excellent. To have the debate at Purim, it's a food that's better in memory.
Well, we have to edit out the Chicago pieces, though.
Right? Won't it freeze in Chicago?
I just set up a menti.com in case we want to do a voting.
We can't do the zip voting. I had to do it beforehand, and I forgot to do it. My fault.
No, I've got it here. Hold up.
Lucy has it.
Let Lucy explain it.
Okay.
You have to go to, I hope it works. You have to go to menti.com and then put in the code that I'm going to be putting into the chat. MENTI, it'll be in the chat.
Lucy, can you measure this and collect the votes? Because I'm not up equal to it.
I hope I can.
And then bring it back to us, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. All right, go for it, folks.
Thank you.
It's beginning to seem as complex as making a Hamantash.
Somebody give me the right to share my screen.
Just a minute, Lucy.
No, I'm still disabled.
I don't see you.
I'm here.
I'm not sure you're here. You're not here. You're there.
Honestly, I am. Honestly, I am.
Jerry,
Waving
keep
my hand.
looking. Keep looking. She's there.
Oh, there you are.
All right, so
I just voted using that password.
no, I've got votes. I've got 13 for one, not 20. For Hamentashen, nobody. I'm permanently on a diet. There's a third option I gave.
I'm voting again
Okay.
until the Hamentashen wins.
This is not Chicago. All right, can you see it all?
Yes, yes, indeed. Thank you.
Is it live?
It's live. Come on.
Wow.
Come on, Hamentashen. Let's go. Let's go. We need some more Hamentashen.
I need your screen up.
Money to the
Should I cover the code?
party.
It's up here, men.com. You have to menti.com and then put in the code.
Voted once for each of us.
What's the code?
It's 72 31 76 2. Oh, I didn't vote my.
It's reserved here that you can vote as many times as you want.
Oh, you.
Like in Chicago.
They're going to get you at Yom Kippur.
Looking at the chat, still Kathy Krieger says, I tremble at the specter of the post-election litigation.
Yeah, we'll get Stacey Abrams after you.
There you go.
I used to live in central Illinois.
Come on, we more people here. Menti.com 72 31 76 2.
This is lower than the open rate on on the Jewish Studies Center newsletter.
This is like
My
the Jerry Lewis telethons.
My chat isn't working. I just want to say there's got to be recounts in certain.
There's always next year.
And 61 lawsuits.
That's
I
it.
regret to mention that I did try to vote again and it won't let me.
Unless you vote.
I
That's
already
not
voted.
valid.
It won't vote again.
Oh, I see.